You're listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. You can hear the show live Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN and streaming at accesswdun.com. You can find all things Martha Zoller at marthazoller.com. Matt Brown's here with us a little bit early today because we're going to be talking to the governor at the bottom of the hour. And, of course, it is big day. We've got the Herschel Walker debate today. On Tuesday, you've got the Brad Raffensperger debate, which Matt Brown will be on the panel. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, Martha, doing pretty well this morning.
Yeah, so tell us, first of all, are you in Savannah with the rest of the world?
I am not in Savannah. I am back in Atlanta after having followed Kemp and Abrams around all week and everything, and I'm now looking at getting prepared, actually, as you were saying, for this debate here in Atlanta and thinking about what's going on in the Secretary of State's debate before all that goes. So covering my own debate before, but keeping an eye out on what's going on down in Savannah with the Senate.
Yeah, everybody doesn't have to be there anyway, so that's just the way it is. Hey, so what are you looking for tonight?
Definitely. So the thing that I'm most interested in is basically how these two candidates are going to be really presenting in front of each other. I mean, Herschel Walker on the campaign trail has been very upfront about the fact that he thinks that Raphael Warnock is an impersonator on the policies that he represents, that he is, in many ways, he's explicitly said that he thinks he's a false pastor, and that he does not believe that he's the good family man that he has presented himself as. I'm very curious to see if Walker is going to be able to land those attacks in person on Warnock in this debate. And on the flip side, I'm very curious to see how Warnock is going to be able to maintain this, I'm the good old guy who can get along with everybody. I can reach across the aisle. I can be the nice upstanding pastor. When he also, he is also a black pastor from Georgia. This man knows how to bring some thunderous prose to a debate setting, if not a speech or a sermon. So that's the thing that I'm going to be seeing. How are they going to be able to maintain their personalities and their personas in this moment when debates just drag people into the mud, and it's going to be interesting to see who comes out dirtier.
Well, yesterday, Warnock said something amazing where he said, and I heard it on one newscast in his voice, then I didn't hear it again. So I don't know if they decided it wasn't newsworthy. I don't know. But he said, yes, they're getting too personal in this race. And I'm thinking to myself, they're not getting too personal in the race. You've been personal since the first ad you ran. They're not. He says, we need to talk about the issues and not people's personal lives. Well, I think pretty much most of the ads. Now, I know a lot of the negative Herschel Walker ads have been by super PACs, but there have been several that have, I'm Raphael Warnock and I approve this message. So he's been talking about Herschel Walker's personal life, too.
Yeah, one of the ads that has been going on since the beginning, as you noted, is from Herschel Walker's ex-wife saying that he held the gun to her head. Now, that's from an NBC interview from 2009, I believe, that Herschel Walker was actually there, and they were talking about his mental health issues. But Raphael Warnock just wants to present that without comment in those ads. As you've also noted, though, a lot of other PACs have come into this state and are showing, the stuff about Herschel paying for an abortion of one of his other children and all these other issues that they've been bringing up and just throwing all this stuff on Walker. So it's become a very personalized situation. But I think that Warnock's strategy so far, anyway, has been to say, well, I'm just not going to get into it, and I'm going to let my political allies do all the mudslinging, but I'm going to maintain my image as the guy who holds the puppy. And that so far has, according to the polls, seemingly worked out pretty well for him.
It's worked, but it's not true. And what's interesting is I've talked to a lot of Republican groups over the last 10 days or so, and I've seen a real shift back to Herschel Walker. I did a presentation last night where I was talking about the concerns about Herschel, and then a question from the audience was, well, what about Reverend Warnock? And, of course, we do have the story out there about the rental units that Ebenezer Baptist Church has. We've got finally the ad with the body cam call the body cam coverage of his ex-wife in the famous 2020 he almost ran over me incident. I mean, she said he ran over him, but he didn't actually run over her. But still, he got in his car. I think we can agree. He got in his car angrily and took off, and she had to jump out of the way. I think that is true. Then you had the situation with the church camp where he was arrested for obstruction of justice along with another pastor that were running a church camp, and there was an investigation into child abuse. What concerns me about that is those are both legal actions that were taken related to church businesses, and so I think that, many people, what I see people doing is they mute the ads when the ads come on now because they're just so hard to watch, whether they're Herschel Walker ads or Warnock ads. And I do think that it's going to be really interesting. I do see GOP voters, though, that were questioning a week ago are more certain today.
Yeah, we've seen this phenomenon all the time, as you've said, where the more people will attack someone as beyond the pale or deplorable, as one famous Democratic candidate once said, that really could rally people, and that could really say, like, I still identify with this person, I can forgive and understand this person, and the fact that you don't seem to want to give redemption or any type of grace to this person is actually going to make me reject you and not come to your side. So that is a serious dynamic in our politics.
And interestingly enough, I have a friend of mine who works with young people, late high school, early college. So only the early college folks are going to be able to vote, maybe the high school seniors. But they were males, athletes, African American. All right. And they just it came up some questions because they knew that this person was a political person, asked him questions. Every single one of those kids remembered the Grace ad, which now it's the newest ad, of course, so maybe that's why they remember it. It's also very different looking than everything else you're seeing. Everything else you're seeing looks like, a segment of Cops or something like that, whereas this one is Herschel Walker looking into the camera, much like Raphael Warnock did in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that ad was very a good scene setter, especially for tonight, where Walker is going to be saying, I want to set my own identity and set your own understanding of me from the public. And that's going to be an important thing that he's going to have to do here. Like, if going into this debate, Walker or Warnock stumble in not being able to uphold that perception, that's going to be catastrophic for either one of them here. Though I do think that because of those ads, there's been a bit of a setting of expectations on what we're actually going to hear from the candidates today.
Well, and I do think if I were Herschel Walker, because I know he's got limited funds compared to Raphael Warnock. I mean, that is one thing we know is true. Democrats have outraised Republicans. Even though Republicans have done pretty well, they've raised more money than they have in almost any other cycle. But the Democrats have raised even more. That's the only ad I would run between now and election. I mean, maybe if you got some new thing, but I would run ads, either the Grace ad or more ads of him talking into the camera, connecting with people, because he's a successful motivational speaker. As Andra Gillespie said on the primary night, we have a polished pastor and a lay pastor. Herschel Walker needs to channel his inner lay pastor, and he needs to look into the camera, and he needs to tell his story as many ways as his money will buy.
100%. And I'm also curious to see how he's going to translate that into more events. Both candidates really were laying low this week in terms of not having that many events before this very large debate. But I'm curious in the run-up to now that early voting is going to be starting next Monday and everything, what these candidates are going to be doing and saying in this final push as people are actually going to be able to, possibly go to an event from one of them and then right after go cast their ballot. This is going to be a very new interesting.
I mean, honestly, I think the numbers, Matt, are going to be astronomical on this. I mean, I think that the early voting in person, because people are feeling good, they're not afraid of COVID. I mean, we had this perfect storm in 2020 where you had older poll workers that didn't want to go to the polls. You had older people that didn't want to go to the polls. You had this upsurge in absentee ballots because of COVID. You had a lot of just fear and angst and all kinds of problems. This almost feels like a new day because people feel pretty comfortable about where they are related to COVID. They're not afraid of it anymore. It's still out there, of course, but it's not something that's keeping people from doing what they want to do. And I think people feel the most confident casting their ballot in person, and I think they're going to utilize that.
Oh, no doubt. I think that early voting is going to be incredibly a spike this year. And on the COVID point, that's one thing that I was very struck by following the governor this week is hearing him talk so much about how one of the things that he really believes is a strong point in his campaign is that he didn't shut down the state for that long during 2020 during the pandemic. He said that was, and that's because he says that he listened to small business owners in Georgia, and that he believes that is a serious part of his campaign this year that he is going to campaign on, that if a Democrat had been in power, he says that the state would have been locked down longer, and that you need to understand me because I understand you. And I think that's going to be a very powerful message that not just going into how people are going to cast their ballots, but also how people are just thinking about what the race has been.
Well, let's shift gears to Raffensperger very quickly. You're going to be one of the panelists on that debate. And what Democrats are most afraid of is that those crossover votes from the primary are going to stay crossover votes. And, Republicans have basically come back home as it relates to Brad Raffensperger.
Yeah, definitely. The polling that we've seen here, and from my conversations with folks down on the trail, it's pretty clear that people at this point are very consolidated around Raffensperger. He's definitely polling ahead of Bina Wen in the polls. At the same time, as you get further down the ballot here, there starts to be a much, much higher level of uncertainty or not an understanding of, who's even running in these certain races and whatnot. So I have seen a serious consolidation about Raffensperger and a lot of other folks on the ticket. People are saying that I might have had annoyances or grievances about the 2020 election and how it was run. I might not trust him to give me my business license on time, but he's a better guy than what the other side is offering. Whereas Nguyen, her job has been to really make sure that everyone in the state actually even knows who she is. So she only just recently went up with ads that are attacking Raffensperger as, a supporter of SB 202, the Election Integrity Act. She's been going up, talking about abortion, which is not something that the Secretary of State actually has all that much to do with, but that she believes is something that voters care about in this election. And it's really shown that even though Raffensperger is everything polling like 12, 15 points ahead of her at the moment, it is still a race that there's a lot of people who are undecided out there. And I would honestly be surprised if any race in Georgia at this point would come with a 12 or 15 point gap in 2022.
Well, we may bet a dinner on that, and we'll talk about that next week. Matt Brown from the Washington Post, thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks, Martha.
It's where North Georgia comes to talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
It is the Martha Zoller Show, and joining me right now is Governor Brian Kemp that is in the, kind of closing days. Campaigns are weird now because you've got this early voting for a couple of weeks, and so early voting starts on Monday. So he's campaigning like crazy right now ahead of early voting, and I don't think it will stop until Election Day. How you doing, Governor Kemp?
Hey, good morning, Martha. Doing great.
So where are you today?
Well, we just left Eccles County, so we were in Brooks. We've been in Lowndes, been in Eccles County, all over South and Southwest Georgia this whole week after being in Atlanta on Monday. And so we've been chopping a lot of wood down there, getting people fired up, getting ready for a big turnout on early voting starting Monday, and we're on our way to Macon right now. So we're coming northbound on 75.
I said last week that you can tell that some of the external polls are reflected by also internal polls by how you and your opponent are campaigning, because you're campaigning all over the state in front of all kinds of groups and reaching out to, every Georgian. What we're seeing from the other side is they look like they're still shoring up their base. That doesn't mean we don't have a lot of work to do, but it seems to me that you're hearing from a lot of different groups of people while you're campaigning.
Well, that's a good point, Martha. I mean, we have been campaigning, in every zip code, every neighborhood. Last week we had a great event at Clark Atlanta University, one of our HBCUs in the state, with I was the only Republican to show up there. But we're going after those votes. We got a record and a message to do that. But also a lot of what's driving our events and our get out the vote efforts is also fundraising. Stacey Abrams has raised more money than anybody could ever imagine in the governor's race, and 90% of it's come from outside the state, California, New York, Washington, D.C., national unions. And so we're having to fight really hard to keep up with that, and thankfully my fellow Georgians and our supporters are helping us, and we're just, we're dictating where the bus is going around events we're doing every night, and we're beating the bushes during the day and working nonstop. We're going to do that to make sure Stacey Abrams isn't our governor or our next president.
So what are you hearing as you talk to people? What are the top issues that are on their mind?
I would say the overwhelming thing that I hear people is they're just thanking me for keeping the economy open, thanking me for helping them have such great opportunities over the last 2 years when you saw other states that were oppressing their people. They wouldn't let them go to work. They wouldn't let their kids be in the classroom. They wanted to defund the police and then cash bail, and those are all things that Stacey Abrams, she criticized me for opening the economy and keeping it open. She criticized me for sending our kids back to school, and she supports defunding the police. She said it with her own words, as well as eliminating cash bail. And, we've been standing with our men and women in law enforcement and making sure that people have economic opportunity no matter what neighborhood or what zip code they're in. And that's a message, Martha, that cuts across political lines. Those are nonpartisan issues for most Georgians, and that's why we're doing non-traditional voters like African Americans, Latinos, our Asian population, and a lot of the metro area that Republicans haven't won in past elections because they're concerned about crime. They want a good economy, and they want their kids and their grandkids to have economic opportunity, and they don't want to, be working for their taxes to get raised by a president that said he wouldn't do that. And they're mad about that. And that's the agenda that Stacey Abrams supports, and that's the one she would bring to Georgia, raising taxes and, more lockdowns. And that's what we're fighting against here.
You had a very tough job. Obviously, being governor of the state of Georgia is a very tough job. But the reunification of the Republican Party you had to deal with after the 2020 election. And for me, the turning point for you, and it might be different how you look at it, but the turning point that I saw was at the Georgia GOP convention where after you spoke and before you spoke, you stood out in that corridor for maybe an hour and a half. I don't know how long it was. It was a long time. You stood out there and took every question from every person that walked by and answered them directly and talked to them directly. And for me, that's when I said, okay, he's going to be fine. He's going to be able to bring this party back together again. And he's going to be able to talk about what he's accomplished and not talk about the past.
Well, I think that's a great point, and it's not just, I didn't just do it at the convention. I've done it all over this state at all kind of different events with all kind of different crowds. And, I think the longer the primary went on, and even as tough as it was, it gave me an opportunity to share what the truth was with people, but also remind them of my record and how I have fought for those individuals, whether they voted for me or not, keeping our economy open, making sure kids were back in the classroom, keeping the capital city of Atlanta from being burned down, and standing with our law enforcement, fulfilling promises I made in 2018 to do teacher pay raises and strengthening rural Georgia and have a great economy in our state, and, stand up and push back against the woke left, including Stacey Abrams on our voting bill that makes it easy to vote and hard to cheat in Georgia, when they she cost us the All-Star game and hurt small business owners in the middle of because of all that, and we never wavered. I stood up with what the truth was, and we got poetic justice because the Braves won the World Series. But also we had record turnout in our primary on the Republican side and the Democratic side. And so a lot of ways, Georgia and our positions that we took really started fighting back against the woke and the cancel culture long before anybody else in this country. And it's because we had the truth on our side, and we still have it on our side. And that's why we're going to win this election. We just got to continue to tell people about my record versus hers. And I'm confident if we're able to do that, we're going to win November the 8th.
So, of course, the economy, education, violence, they're the big issues. When you're reelected, what are you going to do first? How are you going to hit the ground running?
Well, there's two things that really three things I'm very excited about. Obviously, there's a lot of work we want to continue on strengthening rural Georgia, continuing to bring jobs and economic prosperity, just like we've done in the northeast part of the state, which is my home and where you are in Gainesville right now and a lot of other areas up there. But continuing to do rural broadband, working on our transportation infrastructure. But we also, Martha, I've already said, if we go back in January or when we go back, if the good people will send us up there, we're going to do another tax rebate. We had another incredible year because we were open and said no to Stacey Abrams closing our economy. We have record revenues. We got more money than we need. Instead of wasting it and spending it on pork barrel projects, we're going to do another tax rebate and send it back to our citizens to help them fight 40-year high Biden inflation that we're seeing at the grocery store, with eggs up 15%, milk up, eggs up 30%, milk up 15%. And, that's hurting hard-working Georgians, and we're going to try to help them fight through this. But we're also going to do property tax relief grant. We've done that in the past. We have the money, $1 billion extra that's in our reserves that we're going to give back to our citizens through property tax relief grants to help folks with rising property taxes. We believe that'll save the average Georgia homeowner between 15 and 25%. And then we have a great plan to deal with a little bit of learning loss that we've seen in our state and to help our kids on an individual needs basis per school, per student. Unfortunately, you hate rewarding people for bad behavior, but we had a lot of our kind of woke school boards, especially in our metro areas, that wouldn't get our kids back in the classroom, unlike what happened in Gainesville City and Hall County. And that's not, that wasn't the right thing to do, but we don't need to penalize our children. So we're making grants available to help them get back and deal with learning loss. We got money in the budget to help our paraprofessionals. We have 9,000 of them in the classroom to be able to get certified so they become full-time teachers to help with that issue. And then we also are continuing to do more on school safety grants and other things to train school resource officers and help our schools be prepared to keep their campuses safe. Thankfully, in this state, we did a big grant back in 2019 before the latest round of violence. So we have been on the forefront of that and many other things like the Mental Health Parity Act and dealing with mental health issues in our state. We want to continue all of that good work and do some more.
Yeah, I was driving to Jekyll Island this week for the state school board retreat, and I appreciate you appointing me to that board. It's been great work, and I've certainly enjoyed doing it and learned a lot. I understand now why it's a 7-year term, because it takes a long time to get your feet on the ground. But what I will tell you is we took the back way all the way because we like to drive through towns rather than be on 16 the whole time. And there was development all over the place. I mean, and you could tell by the development that it was businesses, it was jobs. And I remember saying to Lynn, I said, in a couple of years, people are going to be working here. And that's what we're creating. That's what Brian Kemp has created, is this ability that no matter where you live in Georgia, there's going to be some economic opportunity for you to live, work, and play where you want to in Georgia.
Well, I'll tell you a great story. I know you were running a clip of us being down in Brooks County the other day at the Royal Cafe, and I had a tractor mechanic that came in there. It was like 8:30 in the morning. His shirt was already dirty because he'd had a morning call getting somebody's tractor back running. And I was talking to the owner of the company last night at an event in Thomasville, and he was telling me about the guy meeting me and showed me the picture we took, and he said, this guy's gone from making $20 an hour to making $40 an hour as a mechanic. He was able to buy a home. He flipped that home and made like $80,000 when he did that, and was able to buy a little bit bigger house and have the same payment. And the guy that I was talking to's point was, you can only do that in Georgia because you kept us open, and this guy's thrived, and he's so happy, and that's why he came to see me. He was appreciative of the positions we've taken to just give him the opportunity to live to fight another day during a global pandemic, when you saw a lot of other governors around the country that would not have done that. And Stacey Abrams has said, Martha, with her own words, she wouldn't have done it either. And that's why we need people to get out and vote early. Let's get it done, and we'll keep this state moving in the right direction and not move it backwards like our country's doing right now with those policies that she would bring from up there down here.
Governor Brian Kemp, if people want to help you, how can they do that?
Hey, BrianKemp2022.com. We'd love to have anybody help us with a contribution to offset the California, New York money that's coming in for Stacey Abrams.
We appreciate it very much, Governor. Keep chopping.
All right, we're chopping. Have a great day. God bless.
Thank you.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Over the next few weeks, I'll be talking specifically to you, not because I want something from you, but because I want more for us. So let's start handling our political decisions the same as we handle our business careers and our family responsibilities. Speaking of which...
It is the Martha Zoller Show, and that was Kelvin King. We played you part of the audio yesterday. We played you the rest this morning, and Kelvin King is on the phone with me right now. I gave a speech yesterday at Lanier Village Estates, and I had several people come up to me and go, "You introduced me to Kelvin King, and I sure hope he's going to do something else." Well, I told him that you just had, Kelvin. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Martha. Happy to be here with you again.
Yeah, you're very popular with the little old ladies, okay? So
Well, thank you. Thanks so much.
So tell us about Kings for America and this kind of push you just put out.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to share a little bit about our initiative here. It's called Kings for America. It's just a play on my last name, obviously, but it's also focused on a segment of the voting population that the Democrats typically think that they have it in the bag. And Stacey Abrams, she's made comments about if black men vote, she wins. So they have a full court press on the black male vote. Because that is a very important segment of the demographics that will help the Democrats. And that's the segment that we want to target. We think that there's about 1 million black male Democrats, about 700 that typically vote in multiple elections. And if we can chip into that, we think we can chip into a portion of that 700,000 and focus on the about 250,000 who are weak Democrats or swing voters. Within that 250,000, if we can cut into that, let's say 50,000, we've made a huge difference in every race up and down the ballot for the Republican Party. So we know that there are black males that are disenchanted with the Democratic Party, and they're not necessarily leaving the Democratic Party, but they're open to vote, across the ballot. And those are the people, those are the targets, those are the men that we want to talk with, because those are the ones that are more open to listening to our message, and they can see that our Republican conservative message is a much, much more beneficial message than what the Democrats are doing right now.
So you said there's roughly 1 million black male voters in Georgia, and 700,000
Democrats.
1 million Democrat male voters in Georgia. 700,000 of them vote, which I think is a pretty good turnout, actually, to get 70%. Wow, that's pretty exciting. And you know what? I think what's kind of exciting in general is that for the first time in a long time, I've heard Democrats talk about black men, specifically about black men. They've spent a lot of time talking about all kinds of other things and ignoring black men and black women. But they're talking about black men and what they need. I mean, you hear the things like the clips you played at the beginning that we played yesterday from Charlemagne the God or something like that. But I think it's an important message because they shouldn't be left out.
Right.
It's an important electorate. Why shouldn't both parties go after that electorate?
Yeah, and the Democrats are doing it right now. And I just want to encourage as many people to be open to having a conversation, talking with anyone that you may come across about our principles, our party. Just give them that type of engagement to where they see that we are a big tent party. We are open and welcoming of all who believes in America and American values and capitalism like the traditional Republicans do. And, we're going to be hosting several other discussions following my intro video. We're going to be hosting several other discussions. And, we want to hear more about what's on the minds of black men. And, we can't just engage every 4 years or every 2 years. We have to continue this conversation, continuously. That way, people, non-traditional, conservatives or Democrats will see that we are a welcoming welcoming party. And I'm looking forward to the following up from this particular intro video that you shared with the public. Thank you for sharing it. But I'm looking forward to following up with some more pretty effective and powerful messaging that we have coming down the pike.
Well, what I thought was interesting, too, is I think you tapped into something that I've observed in the Black community, where many times Black men will call their wives a queen, or they'll call, a woman in their life their queen. And no one ever calls a Black man a king. And I really have watched it from afar, being, a white bread and mayonnaise white girl. I haven't commented on it very often, but it's something I've noticed. And I think that there's a lot of people that miss that. I had one political analyst that I shared the video with, and he said, well, he didn't mention Brian Kemp or Herschel Walker, so what good is this? And I said, no, this is about a long-term strategy. Yes, right, we want to get people out to vote in this election, of course, and we want them to vote Republican. But it's more about kind of like, Joe Lowry said in his book, Zell Miller said in his book, A National Party No More, about the taking for granted of the Black vote within the Democratic Party, where the only time that Black folks heard from Democrats was at election time. I think what you're saying, if I'm getting this, is that this is a conversation that has to go on, and that we have to not only win you over, but we've got to keep you.
Yes, exactly. And that gentleman who made that comment, that's exactly where we typically drop the ball as Republicans. We think that we need to do some hyper messaging right around election season, right? And that doesn't work. It falls on deaf ears to people who are non-traditional voters, who don't typically vote conservative. If we truly want to expand the tent, we have to reach out. And I like that you brought up how we play on the word kings. My last name is King, and in the Black community, there's a lot of conversations about kings and queens, and oftentimes, the Black girl maggots and hey queen, when we're referring to Black women, that's pretty common. But like you said, the king part isn't quite as common, but it's typically discussed in the Black community. So I just want to play on that, and I want to show that I understand. I am part of the Black community, and we can speak in a way where it's connecting, but it's still pushing and highlighting our good conservative values. And I like to use my life as an example of that, where conservative principles and values help me get to where I am. And
well, we've got
a message of encouragement. We're just trying to encourage people.
We have got a lot of work to do as a society, okay? And a lot of times it's the unintended consequences, right, Kelvin, that are the worst, okay? So it was a good idea when I think people's hearts were in the right place when they passed a lot of the social programming that they did in the 60s. But the fact of the matter is that prior to that social programming being passed, that even though Black families were poorer, they typically were married and they raised the children in a married household. Right. And by creating this system, and it hurt white families, brown families, and Black families that were poor. It wasn't just Black families that it hurt. That by creating this ecosystem, if you will, where you got more if there wasn't a man in the home than if there was a man in the home, then what we did is we devalued the role of that middle class, lower class man in the home. And we shouldn't be surprised that 50 years later, 60 years later, we have a lot fewer men in homes where they should be. And
you're exactly right. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and so that's what, and I, as the mother of 3 boys who are men now, I have always been concerned about how we have been telling boys for a while that they're not valuable. All, again, these unintended consequences. It was great to lift up women. I have a daughter, too. It's great. I've benefited from all of that. But all this lifting up of women, which needed to be done, it didn't have to be done at the expense of putting down men. And we can all grow. The beautiful thing about capitalism is it's not a zero-sum game.
And what I heard you say is that we're all interconnected.
Yes.
And I think that is a message that we need to always settle on. I mean, regardless if there's a outreach effort to a Indian American community or a Pacific American community or Black American community, Asian, whatever. Those are outreaches. That's great. It's healthy. But if any community is weak, if any community is struggling, that means America is weaker and America is struggling. So I think it's very appropriate for us to cater or craft our messaging to specific communities. I think it's important for us to have the messengers that can connect best with a variety of communities, because we need the messaging to get out. Regardless of how it gets out, we need the messaging to get out. The messaging of we're all Americans, we're all important, we're all valuable, and we can all do it. I think confidence is missing a lot, in particularly the Black male community. I don't think that we lack opportunities. I don't think we lack a drive. I think we just lack the confidence, oftentimes the direction, in order to change our lives. And we can help.
The fact of the matter is, if you close your eyes and you imagine a world without the United States in it, it would be a very dark place. And this is still the only place in the world where you can come and you can start with nothing and you can make yourself into something. We don't have these arbitrary class systems. Yes, we've had problems. Yes, we've made the same mistakes the humans have made throughout the ages, okay? But we have a framework through our Constitution that gives us the ability to work our way out of this. And I'm very encouraged about what you're doing, number one, but also, even though the inflation numbers were terrible and all kinds of things are going on right now that we haven't seen in 40 or 50 years, we're going to work our way out of this.
Mm-hmm. We will. We will together, though. We've got to be a big tent party once again.
Absolutely. Calvin King, how can people get more information?
Yeah, just go to Let's Win for America. Let's Win for America Action. We have Facebook. We have our website. We're all over social media. Go there, check out our videos. We have some stuff coming down the pike. I think you're going to like it. And let's just get together and let's make sure that the red wave hits Georgia.
And early voting starts on Monday, folks. Get out and vote. Make a plan to vote, and make sure that your vote is counted. I appreciate very much you being with me today, Kelvin. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Martha.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.